kids, but for the teachers, for the school, for the community, but also like my fellow coworkers. And it helps like the shift a little bit too. So when the salty dog starts getting like excited for like, during the briefing before we go out and we start off the shift good and everybody has like good vibes everywhere, it's honestly like the best feeling, and you feel like you're on the best shift ever.
Welcome back, viewers, watchers, listeners. I'm your host, Tyler Owen. Again, I hope you guys and ladies are staying safe, staying cool as the summer dwindles down. Again, it's football season, so a lot of stuff's going on. Thank you so much to all of our university police officers who are having to deal with these crazy drunk crowds as they're taking on all these football matches every single Saturday. Tmpa, things are kind of just moving along. We're coming off the heels of the summertime, trying to plan the Texas Peace Officer Memorial when that date becomes available. I will be pushing that information out. We have yet to hear from Tmpa to confirm whether we're going to continue what we did last year and do a 1 day, or if it's going to be 2 days. Once that information comes available, we are going to push that information out. Today's guest, Edinburg Police Department, Felicia Barragan. How's it going?
Doing great. So you speaking about football season, I had to give a shout out to the Vaqueros. It's our first year.
It is. Hey, they've phenomenal facilities. For those that don't know, the Rio Grande Valley now has a collegiate D1 football team. What town are they in?
They're in Edinburg.
Right there home. Have they given y'all offered the police department members discounts or?
Oh no, not yet. We're working them though, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, that's cool. Hey, that's big news for the Valley. I'm super excited. A friend of mine was getting recruited by them, or a friend of mine's son, and he didn't go there, but the talent that they've got, they had a couple of Texas State transfers, and so big things are going on there in the Rio Grande Valley. And next time I'm down there, hopefully will be before football season ends. I'm gonna go check it out. Their football stadium is phenomenal.
Let me know.
Have you been?
No, the first Saturday, fortunately, I had my sister's Sweet 16, but I have season tickets. So if you need anything, a tailgate spot, I got you.
That's awesome. How long has this kind of been in the works?
It's been also, I think, more than a year that they got the coach and everything. So they've been preparing for a while. So the first game, I mean, you could tell already they were. I mean, I think they blew them out.
Yeah.
And then they just won their second game. So the next home game should be coming up, I think, this week.
That's awesome. Well, I got a text message and a call from one of our directors, Prime Rodriguez, who works at Edinburg Police Department, and said, "Hey, I got a story about Felicia and what she's doing and the initiatives that she's taken on. I think it'd be a great episode." There was a new story that came out. We pushed that here on TMPA, and it is a fascinating story. And for you being so new into law enforcement, just under the 5-year mark, we wanted to bring you on and talk about that. But first and foremost, we talk about where you grew up, how you got in law enforcement. So let's just dive off into who the hell Felicia is, and then how you got to where you are today.
Yes, sir. I'm Felicia Barragan. I'm born and raised in Edinburg. I'm proud. My dad's law enforcement. He worked as a lieutenant in the jail. My brother also was a sergeant for Houston, Precinct 4, Harris County. Shout out to them. So I've always been surrounded by law enforcement and strong roles in like the community. So, and growing up, all the teachers from different stages, from elementary, middle school, high school, they've always pushed me to be better. I've always loved my community. So leaving to the military, I was in the Army for about 3 years, a combat engineer. I returned. I was like, you know what? I want to do more for my community that gave back to me. So I became a police officer at the Edinburg Police Department. I went to the SEC Police Academy. I've been there since.
How big, for those that don't know, for the viewer and watcher, Edinburg, by the way, is also in the Rio Grande Valley, if we didn't cover that already. But how many officers does Edinburg have full sworn?
Full sworn. I've got to say about maybe over 100.
100?
Yes, sir.
So it's a pretty good sized department. I mean, we're not talking about a small.
We're growing.
Yeah.
We're growing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So you started off with Edinburg Police Department in the footsteps of your father as he was in a law enforcement officer with the prison system. Talk about growing up around somebody that was in law enforcement, not a typical police officer, but you know, my daughter to this day knows that if I get nervous around an individual, when I was back home in East Texas, that it's just an individual that may have used drugs, and I've come in contact with them. And I'm speaking of like the grocery store instance. You cops out there, you understand what I'm talking about. You're going down the aisle and you see the dirt bag that you got a dime bag off of, or you got little paraphernalia or a meth pipe the night before, and your kids are with you. It's just kind of an awkward moment. That's why it's so important for you guys to show respect to each other. But your dad, for example, if he comes in contact with somebody at a grocery store or a movie theater, it's a completely different animal. Talk about the different aspects that your dad, you had to grow up with, and if that ever happened to you as a prison guard's kid.
Shit. Man, oh man. Growing up with my father, he really did push us. I got to say, there was a lot of discipline in the house, a lot of things that we had to work for. And I think a lot of my characteristics, a lot of things that I do so good at my job and in life is because the things he installed in me throughout life. But we did, every time we would go out, I've always learned to, hey, just watch your surroundings. Hey, if you see me give you that look, I knew that look he was giving me, I would learn how to like move away and let him handle like a situation. But yeah, man, you could tell that not only he's afraid, but a lot of people actually came up to him because he worked in the in-housing where they would slowly go back into like the regular life after prison. Yeah. A lot of people came up to him and said thank you. Yeah, they were like almost like a father figure. Like, I mean, growing up where we're at, we didn't really have a lot of people that grew up with like good homes, good father figures. So there's a lot of people that actually came up to him and shook their hand. And I forgot to mention, I apologize, I used to work for the jail as well for a year at the county jail. And I think
at Hidalgo.
Yeah, in Hidalgo. I was doing a med pass, and I remember one of the guys like, hey, you got a dad named Felix? I know that last name, Barragan's not really common down there. And I kind of like, step back, and I was like, what is it to you? What's up? And he was like, no. Tell your dad. He probably doesn't remember me, but they would call me Flaco. Tell him I said thank you. And I'm telling him I apologize. You're going to tell me I'm still in here because I told him I wouldn't come back. But your dad's a good man. And it looks like he's raising a good daughter. So it was like a good balance of, he would tell me how to respect people, but also keep your grounding and be aware of your surroundings, Yeah. But also like the good side of like treat everybody as people.
Well, and you working in the jail, it's so hard. I started off at Dallas County. Shout out to my Dallas County people who showed up at the conference this year. We had a great time with them. But it was so challenging for me. I'll call it what it is. I was an 18-year-old white kid from the suburb. Didn't know a whole lot about how to speak to people from different economic regions and so forth. And so me jumping in or getting dumped into Dallas County jails, for those that don't know, it's the second largest jail population or jail system within Texas, and I think the fifth amongst the nation. It was a different animal. And so what I saw in my high school sweetheart, I then married later on, we're now together still. It was I remember her telling me that I changed as a person and I couldn't shut that jail aspect off. And it's just so much different working in a jail than it being a police officer, because police officer, you deal with different people with different economic classes. Yeah. Right? You deal with traffic stops, you deal with the Karens. And so in the jail, everybody there is either they're awaiting trial or have been, convicted, and they're waiting to go to TDC. And there's a different way to talk to people when you're working the jail. Yes. And I didn't know how to shut it off. And I was learning myself as a young man too. But what it did do for me is the ability to speak the language, know how to treat people, because if you're locked inside a pod with 38 people that are in there for some pretty violent offenses, you know how the system works. Talk about that day specifically, about when you went home and told your dad, 'cause I'm sure you called him as soon as you got outside, and then talk about the learning aspect, now being an Edinburg police officer, working in the jail, and being a product of a prison guard for so many years at TDC. Talk about what you learn and what you gain as a jailer.
No, I went straight home when I told him, and he said, like, I hope this is like a full circle for you, like learning that, also treat people as people like with respect, and you'll see it becomes a full circle, and you never know that guy. I mean, how like the boss man of the tanks and stuff like that. So he probably told everybody else like, oh no, she's cool. You gain the respect of everybody else. So he was super like, you could tell like my dad's a little bit machismo. So he's like, oh, that's cool. But I know inside he was like, oh, like, I'm glad to hear that. But the jail aspect, it's totally different, but it did prepare me a lot in the police world, because you learn how to talk to people, and it's like, well, they're in the police world. You see them once, you take that report once, or you lock them up once, and maybe you won't see them there, but you're there every single day. Yeah. So you have to learn how to like,
you're living judo. Together.
Yeah.
You're living together. Yeah.
Verbal judo, you can't just like go off on everybody. You have to like give and take sometimes with these. You have to build a relationship pretty much with these the females. We had mixed. I think before, I think they changed it now, but back then we used to be in the guy pods as well. So we were like an echo pod. Echo pod was full of like the crazies, the ones that they had to keep isolated. So growing up from the jail first, I've learned a lot because my dad started off there too. Just, how do I say it? I'm sorry.
You're good. With being a police officer on the street, you learn how to rationalize and communicate with people who are typically violent or people who have been in the system a while. Because let's face it, sometimes when you're asking somebody on the street, hey, do you have X or you got a gun on you? You can tell by the body language off your experience from the jail and basically how they respond to questions you ask because of your experience. You're already a step, you're way ahead of the game in the FTO process because of your jail experience. Agreed?
Oh yeah. Especially that you hit it right on. It's also the way you talk. I mean, you don't have to be a robot. And I think that's what I learned from the jail. You don't got to be a robot. You just got to read them a little bit and see like from their point of view and be like, hey man, like, I'm just here to talk to you, not like, hey, you need to listen. And hey, you need to like,
yeah.
Treat them like people sometimes. And of course, you need, to take that next level up. You got to take it a little bit notch higher. But, especially being in that pod, you take in a lot and you start reading people, you start watching them. And it's, I don't know. If anybody would have to ask, like, what would prepare me more to be an officer, I think the jail would be.
Yeah, 100%. Right? Well, in my traveling down to Edinburg, what was pretty cool to me is the different suburbs of the main city down there is that there are nice parts of the Rio Grande Valley. Okay. Edinburg seems like a cool place to work at because it's got a good mix. Sometimes you go to some of these cities across Texas and it's completely all poverty, or it's your Karens, your very, very class, upscale type communities. Edinburg has got a good mix in it. With that mix, there's maybe a little bit more on the economically challenged side, and you being a product of Edinburg ISD, you started seeing a need when you were on patrol that you need to be more involved as a female police officer, involved with the school and the younger generation of the Edinburg community, which is why we're here today to talk about an initiative that you started within the school district to bring in beat officers inside the schools to get to meet the kids because it had such an impact on you. Let's go ahead and kick this off and talk about how you started the initiative, what the need and why you saw it was so important, and the success stories building off of that.
Yes, sir. So the program is Blue Heart Initiative. I started off because I remember growing up, there was officers, like 2 officers that came in, 1 female officer, and also my really good friends. Dad, he was an officer who would come, and I was like, man, like these people are super cool, like the badge and, like their uniform, like, and I was like, you know what, I want to do that someday. So growing up, and also like I said before, like the push that my teachers gave me through every elementary, middle school, and high school, I want to mix it all together. So I was like, you know what? We have different sectors in Edinburg. So one little piece, maybe there's like 2 elementaries in there. The other sector is 2 little schools there. So I was like, you know what? These kids see us. Our community policing, don't get me wrong, they do a lot, but they see us on the road. So I was like, you know what, let me get some of these officers who would go. We'll bring mostly 5th graders we're aiming at right now because they're going to transition to middle school, which is a big transition. We play some basketball. We get them like a little bit like relax, a little fun. And then we break them up into smaller groups where we have more one-on-one. And we don't just talk to them about drugs, which is really important, but we talked about what we're really aiming right now is TikTok. And all of them are on TikTok, and they're seeing like a lot of bad examples on TikTok, but also we tell them about peer pressure, because when you go to middle school, they're going to be the little dogs, and we don't want them to get peer pressure in anything. We also remind them like, hey, after the age of 10, you're held accountable for your actions criminally.
Yeah.
You think a little bit more about that, but also the core of it is tell them to focus more on school, to dive in with their teachers, that their teachers are here for them, but also connect with them and see if anything's going on at home.
Yeah.
And you won't believe it, but some of them, we would tell them like, hey, can I talk to you? And they'll tell us what's going on at home. And I'll tell these officers that are with them, like, hey, if they're in your beat, try to do a follow-up. Go check on them, and maybe that'll be a difference. And I think one kid was really struggling in school and at home, and we did a checkup at home, and we would talk to the parents. And so people just need that little guidance, a little push on the parenting side, even, and on the kid side, on the meet halfways. And slowly he started doing better in school. I would check up every week, every Friday. And I think he didn't believe me, but he saw me like show up every Friday. It's like, oh, she really did show up. And he started to do really good. And also, I think we don't have really a curfew. So these kids can be out, like, during the day. And there was these kids that were at like an abandoned house. And I remember one of them, and they don't want to tell us what they were doing, where they're coming from, where their parents are at. And we couldn't force them to tell us. And I remember one of them looking, I was like, hey, the female was like, can I talk to you real quick? And then she was like, I was like, hey, you remember? You're the one that stuffed me in basketball. And she's like, yeah, I remember, ma'am. You're super cool. And I was like, is everything okay? Like, why are you here? Like, does your parents know you're here? And she slowly just started to cry and like open up. And she ended up telling us what they were doing, which is it wasn't leading to anything good. We ended up getting her home, and then slowly I marked where she lived. So for the next time, and you just keep like that mind in place. To go back to that, I understand a lot of cops get a little bit burned out, or a little bit like the jobs, they start losing a little bit of feeling of the job. So those patrol officers, when they go and they see like the joy on these kids, it's kind of like a refresher for them to refresh like their battery. So that's another plus too.
Well, and what's so fascinating is that I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day that lives in East Texas, and we work together on patrol. And admittedly, we both admit this, we were getting burned out. And for you, an officer that's not been in Edinburg for 5 years, number one, to take the initiative to do this, kudos. But number two, to get the buy-in from people that have been at Edinburg longer than you, and that are probably currently going through burnout or on the approach of burnout. How did you get that done? Because that's going to be the secret right now. Some of these podcast people that are listening or watching this are going to go, how the hell did you do that? Because listen, we've all got that one salty dog that's been on patrol for 29, 35 years that didn't promote, is just on the job, and he or she is going from call to call to call, and then they go home, and there's no other expectation than just that, right? And I think when I was on patrol, seeing those type of officers, we call them the roosters or the vets, right? Seeing those type of officers interact and seeing them light up, like, oh my God, I'm making a difference today. That's the most rewarding part. But how did you get those people involved in this initiative?
Oh my God, I was annoying. I'm gonna tell you that. I kept pushing them. One of the salty dogs is on my shift. I was like, come on, man, let's try it out. Like, and not that he was super negative, but he was just like, no, it won't work. No, it's not gonna, And I just like, it's just burnout. I was like, bro, just give it one chance. That's all I ask. Just give it one chance. And I kept on, and he finally came out, and let's just say he went to a lot more.
Yeah.
Of those every time he's like, you
can do that again next week.
Like, yeah, man, you want to come out and do it. And I think that's what that's like also was like so cool about it, that it just filled every aspect, like not even just one. It was just not the kids, but for the teachers, for the school, for the community, but also like my fellow coworkers. And it helps like the shift a little bit too. So when the salty dog starts getting like excited for like, during the briefing before we go out and we start off the shift good, and everybody has like good vibes everywhere, it's honestly like the best feeling, and you feel like you're on the best shift ever. And I think it just pushes out more of like how do I say it? Like good work to the community. You know what I mean?
Does Edinburg have an Explorer program in place right now, or has this fed into an Explorer opportunity for the younger generation?
You asked that. So I was actually in the McAllen Post Explorer program in 1924. Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong if the number's not right, but I actually just sent up IDC a memo to my chief to open up the first one there in the Valley. So
it's so important to know this. Me and Clint talk about this time and time again. If you don't have experience in law enforcement, one of the other aspects of the Explorer program is to get one started. And listen, not every department needs one. I'm going to say it right there. If you're a small department and you can't handle the manpower, that's one thing. Edinburg's big enough, y'all can handle it. it reaches out to the community. It gets the interest of law enforcement up, because I was up for the age to be one at Irving, where I grew up at. I never was able to do it because I got moved off to East Texas. But they're so impactful.
Oh, yes.
Friends of mine that I grew up with that are now Irving police officers and work at Dallas County or Dallas Police Department were products of the Explorer program. And so I think it's imperative. And you've got my number now. I'll do anything I can, and me or Prime or JP can do anything we can to get this initiative going. If more departments were doing what you were doing, if more officers were getting these initiatives going, I think we would not be in the crisis we are right now with the retention and recruitment process with law enforcement. Is there, in your experience or your research through starting this Explorer program, how in depth is it to get one off the ground? And I guess we haven't crossed it until your chief signs off on it, correct?
No. So the process of it, you get a register with Boy Scouts of America.
Okay.
You would get your post number there, and then they have policies and regulations that you have to follow. I think it's like one advisor per 5 members. And you slowly go from there. And then, of course, you start recruiting and stuff like that. I'm actually teaming up. Hopefully it goes through. Chiefs, it's a great idea. I'll pitch it any day.
Yeah.
I think when you say like, oh, what's like proof that it'll work? I feel like I'm living proof.
Yeah.
I was there with the Exposed program. Shout out to Mrs. and Mr. Viral. They're one of the advisors that I had there, Miss Peterson. Starting off from McAllen to like, I think there's one other guy that I went to Contreras. He's FAR department police officer. There's another one in the Navy. There's another one that's a trooper right now. So there's all these successful stories. But to start off with it, it's not, you just got to register. You got to get all the paperwork, which anybody can get my number, McAllen Post. There's like surrounding agencies. Dallas has one. Corpus has one. They even have a website. And I'm pretty sure people can reach out there in Texas to see how their paperwork, because they got to apply. You start recruiting, you got to apply your kids, and basically the whole academy is yours, whether you want to do a small academy, whether you don't want to do the academy, how you want your uniforms. But basically the hardest thing is just to get approval from your admin and then applying to Boy Scouts of America, which is not that hard.
So who do we know specifically who funds it? I mean, obviously if you were to do this, Edinburg, y'all's rules and regulations at the top, is it volunteer by the officers, or they get paid, or how is it funded? Is it the city takes on that burden and that responsibility as an outreach to the community?
So from when I learned from the McAllen Post have somebody detailed to it, but my past advisors, when I went, they were like volunteered mostly. Yeah. And I don't mind volunteering, but I think it's all up on your admin, whether they want to, like pay you on the clock for it or off. But I already was going into it with I'll volunteer my time, wherever I can make available. And that's what was cool. Partnering with McAllen was, in case I can't make it or I'm working, we're putting our cadets together, so we could share like that time and training with their facility and our facility. But other than that, it's all on your admin, how you get paid with it, doing it.
And you just touched on it a while ago. A lot of the people that you graduated with or that you were in that post with are now successful in some type of military or law enforcement fashion. Give us some idea, just for those that don't know or have been living in a closet for 20 years or 50 years, is that what exactly does an Explorer post do? Talk about the processes and talk about maybe the daily, because I think the one in Irving met like once or twice, once every 2 weeks, and they would have they would have a unit, very much like Boy Scouts. They got a set uniform they got to do, but they would do like law enforcement training drills and mock traffic stops and mock building searches. Give us some examples of what McAllen did.
So I started off, I think, in high school. I was like a junior, but they ages from like 14 to 20 for Boy Scouts, but you can stop at 18. And I believe when I was in McAllen Post, they stopped at 18. So actually, you apply. They choose your packet. Then you get interviewed by them, and then if you get chosen, you go through an academy. That's what I did. So we went through like a week academy. It was actual Border Patrol academy dudes that ran their like physical academy. They ran ours.
Oh, wow.
So you have like the whole like actual like police, like you have the name written on your back, like your shirt tucked in, make sure your hair, like for female, your hair slicked back, and like military style, the whole thing. Like it's showing you the real deal of what you expect later on if you do decide to be a police officer or anything in that aspect. So after you pass it, we meet once. I think we met every Wednesday, And then every other week we met Wednesday and Saturday. But it's nothing but training on, like you said, mock traffic stops, active shooter, building searches, CSI investigations, accidents investigations, and all that stuff. So after you train, they'll pick like the best teams. I think that we had 2 teams, so 4 and 4. And we would train we would compete all over Texas. Like the last one I went to was El Campo. And we trained in like active shooter, and it's actually like the sim rounds and everything too. So it's pretty realistic. So, and then they place you on different, like, if you got first on that division and stuff like that. But also there was a lot of like scholarship opportunities.
Yeah.
There was, I think I went to Virginia with my advisors, and it was like a week long of camping covered by the Boy Scouts of America. And we did like a lot of like zip lining, kayaking, and a lot of cool stuff. And then for Police Week, they would send whichever many they can that year to Police Week in Washington. And you would like...
and they would serve as volunteers, some of the, like the Candlelight. I mean, that's where their pool of volunteers come from, some of these posts. So, again, if the Edinburg Chiefs listening or watching this podcast, Chief, I'm telling you, if you do that, you're building a culture of within. Think about it. If all these kids or students within that community, not just Edinburg, but the surrounding cities, if they're looking at your mentors as the Edinburg police officers that are mentoring these kids, why wouldn't you do that, right? And if it's a funding issue, I don't think any city council on any type of government, with the exception of Texas City, and that's for a whole different episode. Why wouldn't you do that? A lot of departments spend a lot of money and a lot of resources and a lot of time on recruiting efforts, and you can have this on your back door and have your officers involved with the community. So it serves a dual purpose. You mentioned earlier again, a lot of people you graduated with from McAllen were successful in the military or law enforcement. But what I challenge is that I wonder how many didn't go to prison, or how many wasn't arrested, or how many didn't get on drugs, or how many successful father figures or mothers that were built out of that program that we necessarily couldn't link to law enforcement, military. But how many of those people were successful members of the Edinburg Society or McAllen Society because of that program? So kudos again, hats off for another initiative that you started, because it looks like it's trending into something you thought, or is trending into something bigger than what you actually thought.
Back to the funding, we paid, I think, like at the end of the year, so there wouldn't be any really funding from them.
Yeah.
And the McAllen, they recycled. I mean, if you go to your quartermaster, there's a lot of stuff in there that's not being used.
Right.
So that's what McAllen Border Patrol did. We used like their old pants, their old belts, the old belt keepers and stuff like that. And our funding that we paid at the end of the year was mostly for our dress, or like our Class A uniforms. So when we go compete, and just our polos, and just like extra stuff, like in case like for snacks and stuff when we go over like on Saturdays to train all day. But the same thing here, I would use the same fundamentals and use like all the stuff that we don't use in quartermaster.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But it's a good mental role. I mean, I remember, I think I was a little mouthy growing up, and I remember Mrs. Varela, shout out to her, they put me on check on there, and they said, hey, you gotta want to be here. You gotta want it. You don't want to be here. You don't gotta be here.
Yeah.
You're here to grow. You're here to learn. You're here to be, because you want to be here, not because we're forcing you, So I remember they sat me down, and like I said, they counseled me at Roy Road, and they said the next time this happens that I would be taken out of the thing. So I got pushed in many ways, and I ended up being for that. I ended up going all the way up to captain, there and competing and getting first place with a lot of the teams, like Contreras, like I said, I think Miss De La Rosa, the ones that are all like successful careers right now. So like I said, it's more for the kids, and they don't even have to go to law enforcement. It's just something that you build, and you get mentors to teach you, to guide you and stuff like that. And there's been a lot of other examples that my advisors had to guide me going through, especially through high school. High school is like a really challenging stage for young people. And I think that's where you really have to set the seed and set the stone of where you want to be when you grow up.
Yeah, for sure. And I can speak on me growing up in the city of Irving, which is, it's very, very significantly larger than Edinburg. But when I was growing up there, Edinburg seems to have the similar traits in the sense of the equal economic regions, I guess, is what I'm trying to say best. Me going to Edinburg, I saw a lot of similarities in Irving. It's very diverse, both on the financial side, but also the people of Irving. And so Irving's, Explorer Post was very successful. And so I hope that you can get this off the ground. And again, use me as a resource if you want to. I can certainly help out whichever way we can. So, hey, is there anything else that you wanted to cover about this initiative that you got going on?
No, I just hope that if anybody that's listening to this, it doesn't have to be that. You could find your own thing to connect them with. I just chose basketball because I love basketball, and it's a little easier to get them all in there. And if they're not watching, they're on the side, cheering and stuff like that. But really connect to the start of your community, because I always tell these kids, I'm like, hey, where do you want me to see you? Do you want me to see you with me?
Right.
And back in my police car? Because this is reality. Sometimes you got to tell these kids, which is it going to be? Am I going to see you later here? I'm going to see you, run into you because you're somewhere like a pillar in this community, or run into, and they should be like, oh, hey man, I remember you from, you want to run into me in a good way or in a bad way, in reality.
Well, again, I can't tell you how much I appreciate, number one, you starting this, but number two, it seems like, don't take this the wrong way, and I hope your generation doesn't either, but your generation of law enforcement officers that are entering this profession, not that they got into it for the wrong reasons, but it seems like they're just straight business, that they're almost robotic, in that I think they get burned out. They came into law enforcement at a time that George Floyd, on the heels of George Floyd, where anything and everything they do is extremely examined and micromanaged to a certain degree from the administrations. And so what you see a lot of officers that are in their downtime sitting in a parking lot with their windows rolled up, the tent's there, and they're playing on their phones, and they're playing video games on their phones or watching YouTube. And I think that you taking this initiative is thinking outside the box, because let's just face it, there wasn't a book for you to look up and say, okay, this is how I do this. You went with your heart, you went with your gut, and now look at where you are now on the heels of starting an Explorer program at a post that never has existed, because you knew it was the right thing to do. And so from a cop standpoint, that's been in this business for 20 years and now working for Tmpa, hats off to you, sister, because you are starting the next generation and instilling those values into people getting interested in law enforcement. When I was growing up, Cops, the TV show, was the shit. That was the thing to do, the thing to watch. And I think that's where we saw a lot of recruitment in my age group, was because thanks to that TV show. As stupid as it sounds, that's the reality. And so we've got to think outside the box, and programs like what you're doing is exactly this step. So
I appreciate that.
I appreciate you. Hey, we're going to wrap things up here. I'm going to start off with my 3 rapid fire questions. I hope you studied for them.
That's cool. Let's go.
All right. What is your favorite patrol car you've ever driven? What's your favorite drink of choice when you're enjoying time off away from the job? And what is your favorite line from a cop movie?
So my favorite patrol car is going to be a Ford Explorer, first, that I came into. And then it's going to be Fireball, like people say Fireball and Diet Coke. And
Fireball and Diet Coke. I've never heard that mixture before. I'll have to try that out.
Yes. And then also my favorite movie was the End of Watch.
End of Watch. That right there, Clint talks about it a lot on the show, is that probably depicts the best banter amongst law enforcement, the most, the bullshit that cops kind of put each other through, that little love-hate relationship, but also the reality of inside the patrol room, the patrol briefing room, and inside the patrol car when 2 cops are kind of going at it. It's probably the best movie that you can depict a cop's life, period, bar done. Well, is there any way that people can contact you or reach out on this initiative? If you want to channel it through Tmpa, that's perfectly fine. We can reach out to you and coordinate that. If somebody's interested in starting a program like you started there in Edinburg, how would they get in contact with you? If it's through us, that's perfectly good.
It could be through you all.
Okay.
I can leave my work phone number. My work phone is 956-378-8290. Maybe connect with me, ask any questions. I'm open. Or if you want to give me ideas, I'm open-minded friend.
Yeah, and if you guys want to send us an email, we can channel that through to get to her, to Felicia. It's bluegrit@tmpa.org. We can certainly facilitate the meeting or the information being distributed. I can't thank you enough for coming on. I can't thank you enough for what you do and continuing the legacy of your last name with your father. You and your brothers are still in law enforcement and continuing that last name. So thank you, and starting this initiative. So I greatly appreciate it. Yeah, for sure.
I just want to thank Tmpa for having me.
Yeah.
The leadership from up there, but also the leadership in, of course, in my department. I couldn't do it without my leadership. All those leaders, my sergeants, my lieutenants, pushing me and getting me where I'm at. I couldn't be where I'm at with them.
It makes a big difference when you go to work every day and you enjoy, and good leadership does matter. And sadly, we see it more often than people when contact TMPA, they're calling it because they're in an issue. But the reality is that law enforcement in general, they're led by men and women who love their job and love the profession. And so we need good leadership. And when good leadership's good, obviously it reflects on their people on the street. So yeah, for sure. Hey, you guys take care. Stay safe. Y'all be in tune. We're fixing to push that information out. The Texas Peace Officer Memorial coming up. It'll be announced most likely in the next couple of weeks. So be looking out for that information. You guys take care. Stay safe. God bless you. And as always, may God bless Texas. We're out.